tutorial we're going to be taking a look at how to work with a green screen, also known as Chroma Key. Now, I'm not referring to actually physically setting it up, that is covered in a separate tutorial, but in this one we're going to be looking at how to get this sort of effect, what you see over here with a small version of myself down at the bottom right corner. Now, I could click on that and position myself anywhere. I could, if I wanted to, increase in size. So we're going to look at how to get that. So in order to do that, what I've already done in advance is I have brought in a couple of things. So I'm coming up here to the right and clicking on my media library, and you'll see that I've got basically the two things we see down here on the timeline. So this is the finished result over here that we've just looked at, and we're going to look at how we did that. So basically, over here in the media library, I've got a sample video that a screen capture video that I did just for a few seconds. So that's what we're looking at here in the canvas. And then over here is a screenshot that I did of the video that I recorded, which was used for the promotional video for Snackable Tech Tutorials. And we'll see in a moment that when we look at it, there's a lot of mess in the background, which the green screen is hiding, and that is, I'm going to blame that solely on my two young daughters and my lack of energy to fully tidy it up. So what we're going to do is bring this into the timeline. So click on that and drag it down. Now, I'm just going to drop it there for a second. So the first thing to know about using green screen is that it needs to sit on top of the thing that you want to be in the background. As we can see over here, that's what I did. It's sitting on top of that. So the first thing you would do is lower the thing that you want to be underneath, which we simply do by clicking and dragging down. Okay, I'll just put it back up to that track. We're then going to put the green screen image, which represents our video. So both of these could be video. It doesn't matter that whether we're talking pictures or video, the principle is the same. So both this is actually a video sample, and this is a screenshot of a video sample. And as I say, it works the same way, whichever way you do it. So that now is on top of the background. Okay, but we're still seeing the finished result because the red scrubber here is on top of that section. So I'm just going to bring it all the way back over here. So right now it looks like that. Okay, so what we want to do is get rid of the background. Now, this, annoyingly, this particular kit that I use, which is mentioned in a separate tutorial, it can't be set up sort of from left to right. So it's got a lot of great length, which would perfectly cover the entire room, but then you don't get the height. So you kind of have to go with height or length. So for this video, I filmed this with my Samsung S7 phone set up sort of as reasonably far away as I could get it, and I had it set to, I think it was ultra high definition, so that was like 2,500 resolution by something else. It was really high, and I did that because I knew that I would need to zoom in to try to get roughly the right sort of amount of screen, but actually that is only relevant depending on the background and how much background you want. So if we quickly come back over to here in the timeline, how much background doesn't matter because we are only going by whatever is green in the background. And what I mean to say is, if we come back over here, if we wanted to be sitting in front of something that was effectively the same size as the actual photo, then we would need all of that to be green in the background. So all I could do was, I was limited to this exact green up here and across there and down there. So I have to crop around that, and then that's all I can use. And that's why it's important to record in the highest definition possible, because you're going to be needing to zoom in and still be clear. So I'll show you what I mean. So the first thing we want to do is crop this image. So I have clicked on it in the timeline. I'm now going to come up here to this video tab and click on it. And then you'll see here we've got cropping. Now if you've not been in there before, that might sort of be closed. But if you click on it, you can see left, right, top and bottom. Now the first thing you can start doing, just to check the sensitivity and how much you actually need to do, is slide. So click on and slide the left one so you can see what it's doing. It's bringing that in. So I could bring that into about there. Okay, so we want to basically get a vertical line. You can see that the best to get it all is about there. Now don't try to drag up here by holding on to this, because if you do that, you're just going to shrink the image or the video. So I'm just going to undo that by doing Command Z, okay, or Command Z if you prefer. And then I'm going to come back here into the panel over here, and then I'm going to click on the right one here and then move that across as well. Now you can see that when it takes it to the limit that it says here, it's not enough. So you can actually overtype this. So I'm going to go with, just to test the sensitivity, if I were to do 450, that gets me onto the green, so that's great. And that's about right. And now we want to get rid of, we want to bring this down to just above my head. So come to the top one, and we can see that that's about right. Now, if you actually wanted to make sure that this was the same ratio as this background, so this background, which is on a canvas, the canvas is a perfect 16:9 ratio. Okay, this, I would hazard a guess, is not. It looks like it's actually a bit higher than a typical 16:9 ratio, and I'll show you what I mean. Let's see if I'm right or not. If I put that up to there and then drag it down, so just click and drag, there you go, you get that little space there, and then you get bars on either side. Now you can see it's a little bit blurry. Okay, now that is sort of mid-motion. You can see from my fingers it's mid-motion, but it was clear enough to be, you know, something that you could use in video filmed with a phone. Now I'm just showing you here what you would do if you wanted to still have a good widescreen video. In my case, the problem is the position of my phone, the amount of green screen behind me. I would not be able to get a perfect 16:9 ratio here in the background, because as we can see, we're missing a bit of space here. So I wouldn't be able to do that with this particular one. So if you did want to have it fit the canvas perfectly, you would have to give yourself enough green on either side. So that's the first thing. But that's sort of a side note. What we want to do for this now is we're okay getting rid of this green completely. So if we come back to the crop tool over here, if we wanted to actually crop it even closer to my knees and arms, we could by just adjusting the numbers here, but because we're going to make the green become see-through, it doesn't matter. The most important thing was we wanted to get rid of the background mess and have only green, and now we want to turn the green see-through so that we can see the website in the background. So what we're now going to do is actually add the Chroma Key green screen filter onto this here, which is highlighted yellow in the timeline. Okay, so come down here where we see video filters, and there's a little plus over here. Click on that, Now, the very first time you use this, you might not see Chroma Key. You would just see all of these options, and all you would need to do is in the search bar here, start typing Chroma Key, and this will come up. And then it tends to stay there because it's kind of like a favorite, so it just keeps it there as perhaps a last searched item. So I'm going to click Add. Okay, now you can see straight away it's doing something. It's trying to make me transparent rather than the green. And that's fine, because if you look here, we now have a Chroma Key. Okay, but what it's doing is wherever there's this sort of shade of gray, it's turning that see-through. So that color appears in all of these places, and that's why it's turning them see-through. So we need to change that by clicking on this gray square, and we now get a color selector. If you simply come up to somewhere in the green and just click and hold it, I'm just clicking on it and moving it just to show you, moving it up and down. As you can see what happens now if you come up to the very sort of okay, let's see. So where the little plus is over here, that seems pretty good. Let's see, look around the hairline. I would say that's not bad. So you can fine tune it as much as you like, but I'm going to just leave it at that. Okay, and then furthermore we can fine tune it here where we see white clip, tolerance, and angle. So if you come up to white clip and drag that all the way down, you'll see the screen. Drag it all the way across. You can basically, the rule is kind of like look around the line of the body against what's in the background, and you'll see what you're cutting off. So if we go all the way to the top, okay, so take a look here around my left shoulder, okay, coming down like that. As I move this slider, okay, you can see there's a bit of an edge to it, but then as I move that out to the right, it kind of blurs it off a little bit and kind of makes it a bit more natural. So probably, you know, the default that it was already set to was pretty good. And then tolerance, same thing, just to show you, take that all the way back to the very beginning and then move it across, and then you can just check. So if I move that across, I'm sort of getting a bit of a haircut. Move it back out. My hair's a bit longer, so probably somewhere around about there. And then the angle, if I again move that all the way down just to show you, and start moving it back up. Okay, now all of these are just, they're going to be different. This, you know, they'll take effect differently for you based on the position of your lighting. You know, if you look at the, I'm just going to drag them all to the left. Actually, there's no need to drag them all. I'll just drag those two. So if you take a look at the green screen, which because the filter's on it, it's not showing as the same bright green that it was. But you can see that it's pretty consistent. We've got a little bit of kind of shadow over here where the screen was not perfectly straight, because just bear in mind it's a piece of fabric hanging over a pole. But I did a pretty decent job setting it up. Tried to get all of the sort of creases out, but you know, based on angles of lighting and everything, you're going to have you're just going to have to consider using these tools over here to try to get as much transparency as possible. And also, if you look down here, you can see there is a natural shadow on the back there. I did have to play around quite a bit with the lighting that I had to try to kind of keep the shadow from casting off to the left or right, because I used two lights here, and lighting is covered in a separate video as well. So this is just basically how to take either an image or your video and apply a green screen filter to it. So let's just basically pull those back up. Okay, so let's say we are happy with that. Now another thing we can do is we can give it a shadow. So if you come up here, we've got a drop shadow. Just click on that, tick that box. Now this can be quite good because it can actually really help it to look like you are actually sitting in front of something. Now that shadow is pretty decent. You can see you can adjust it and make it a bit gentler so the lighting isn't necessarily, you know, that's just ridiculous. But if you bring it more this way, it would seem more like a natural shadow if you wanted one. If of course you are sitting in a room, for example, or you want to represent that you're sitting in a room and you wouldn't get a shadow on the wall behind you because you're not that close to it, well then you wouldn't want to use the drop shadow. But if you do want a shadow, then you can sort of come in here and change the angle of the shadow, you know, and this would also be good to use if you happen to have lighting where it's very obvious that the lighting is coming from a certain angle. Then you might as well give yourself a shadow if it's going to make it look more realistic. So let's just say that we are happy with that, if that's what we wanted. So then I would just come back, make sure it's all good in the timeline, and then we've now got these little dots which we can click on and drag. Alright, so we're going to just shrink myself, say down there, and let's just say that we're happy with that. I'm happy with being roughly there. And then that's it. You've basically applied your green screen and just position it wherever you want it. And as we'll see in other tutorials, you can get it to come in and out at different times, or make it different sizes at different times. So perhaps at this point you'd be describing something on a website in the background, but then you want to talk for a little bit about something where it's not really about what's going on in the background. Well, then you could set the video to increase in size and come back to the center where it was when we were first talking, or even if it's just that size. So you can basically set this to do all sorts of automatic things based on when you need it to do those things. And as I say, that'll be covered in other tutorials. So for now, that's it for this tutorial. Get experimenting with your green screen and see how fine-tuned you can make it so that it looks nice and sort of smooth around here and not all sort of choppy and not having invisible bits appearing sort of through your body, which can happen. So make sure that you are wearing something that is quite a contrasted color from your green screen. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. I will see you in the next one.